Hello everyone, welcome back to my kitchen. Today I am going to be making tallow and tallow balm. I'm going to be rendering 5 pounds of beef suet or beef fat that I got at Keener Family Farms, my favorite farm here in the Carolinas. And to get started, I've got the lid for my pan because I don't need it on there yet. But the first thing that we're gonna do is make sure that we have the rack out of the oven so that, I'm hoping you can see this. I just have my bottom rack in so my pot can sit right on there. And the next thing is to get our oven started, and I am going to set it at 250 degrees. That is the perfect temperature for rendering I have found. So the next thing is to get the suet or beef fat ready for rendering. I cut my beef fat up yesterday so that I could let it sit in the fridge overnight and get hard again, because the harder it is, the easier it is. Which I know that sounds like an oxymoron, but when these are not soft little cubes, they chop up much easier. So that is the next step. I'm going to put them all through my food processor and get them into my pot. And I will show you my little pot. This is really cool. It's not a little pot, it's a big pot. But it has an insert in it with all the nice little holes in it. Probably for steaming. But it works great. I put my chopped up fat into the strainer, and all of my liquid gold goes down to the bottom of it. So let's get started, and I will speed this up so you don't have to watch all of this because I know it will get boring. So, ludicrous speed. I will say that the reason that I put it through the food processor is if I've got it this big in chunks, there's not as much surface area as if it's in these little crumbles, and they melt much easier. I am noticing that some of this fat is very soft and almost goopy. So this is going to be interesting to see how that renders down, because as you can see, that's very soft. It's not crumbly, it's more of a mush. So I'm not sure how that will turn out, but we will find out. And now I need to go wash my hands because they are covered in juicy fat. Do not lick your fingers at this point. It doesn't taste good yet. I have all my fat in my pot, and I'm going to put my lid on. My lid has this little thingy on it which can help with airflow. I'm going to shut it so that all of the heat stays in my pot. And now I'm going to go stick it in the oven and let it sit there. This part is done. It may be in there for 8 hours. Just depends on how long the fat takes to render down. But I will check on it periodically so you can see how it's going. A perfect fit. It has been about 2.5 hours, and this is what we've got. It has melted down quite a bit, which is, the whole point of the thing.
So this is what is in my strainer. I'm just mixing it up because I'll be putting it back in because that's definitely not done. I mean, look at some of these blobs of fat still. We want all that to melt down. I'm just gonna give it a little stir, pull it away from the edges so it can continue to melt. And then, hang on, I'm gonna bang the spoon a bit to get all this stuff off. Now we'll lift this up and see what's underneath it. Doing this with one hand is not very easy. But there is our liquid gold down in there. There's a few bits in there, but that's okay. But back in the oven it goes, and we will render some more. It's been about 2 hours since we last checked on our melting fat here. Wouldn't it be nice if it was this easy to melt fat off your body? We're getting there. We're not quite done yet. I've still got time to go on that. But I am going to go ahead and do my first strain. Trying to make sure I don't burn my arms. But here's our beautiful tallow. I'm going to pour it into my sieve, which I've got double folded cheesecloth in there to catch any of these little drippy bits that we don't want in our tallow. So I've got my pan pretty empty. I'm going to put this back in it. And this is going to go back in the oven, and I'm going to go over to the other counter where I show you what I do with my strained tallow. See all my little charred bits of fat, little cracklings in there. Just shaking off as much of that liquid gold as I can. I'll meet you back over there in a second. Now I'm going to be making 2 different things here. I'm going to be putting tallow for my tallow balm in my mixer, my measuring cup here, and then in these little pint jars, I'm going to put the tallow that I use for cooking with. I'm going to start with the tallow balm. And let's see, I've got about, what's it, 2 cups? About 2 cups of tallow in there. And then I'm going to carefully pour some in my jars here. And remember, I still have more tallow rendering in the oven. That's about 2 nice pints right there. Not a whole lot left, so I'm just going to put that in with what I'm going to be doing with the tallow balm. Give that a nice little shake. Now I'm going to let this cool down a little bit, and I'm going to put lids on these 2 jars so they can seal up. But here we have some liquid gold. All I have to do now is let those seal, and they go on the shelf. And to this, for my tallow balm, I'm going to add castor oil. And no, I do not measure. I just kind of pour. And coconut oil. I'm going to need a spoon for this one. I don't have a whole lot left in here, so I may add just the rest of what's in there. Trying not to splash it so it doesn't make a ginormous mess. But yeah, I didn't have a whole lot left in this bottle of coconut oil, so we'll just use all that's left in there. And since the tallow is warm, bordering on hot like me, I'm going to let all these other oils melt in there. Well, the castor oil is liquid, the coconut oil is not. But I'm going to let those melt in there for a little while. And then I'm going to let this cool down slightly. And that's when I'm going to grab my immersion blender and blend it up into like making it more like a whipped tallow balm. So with these additions in here, I have added it to about 2.5 cups of stuff. So I've added about a half cup, probably more of the coconut oil than the castor oil. But they're pretty much dissolved in there. So now I'm just going to let this cool for a little while, and then we'll come back and whip it up and put it in a container. All right, this has cooled down just a little bit. I did put it in the fridge for just a minute to try and get it to cool down even more. I'm going to use my immersion blender and make sure all of these oils are blended together really well. You can see the color changing. And that's just because it's being whipped together. Have to readjust because I have to hold the button down while I blend. Now, using my immersion blender does not make it into like a whipped butter, really. It's just making sure that everything is really blended well. And this is the jar that I put my tallow balm in. It's just a perfect jar for me. Pour that in there. Make sure we get everything out, because that is really nice oil. This is really good for any skin issues you might have. If you have rosacea, psoriasis, this is really great. It's going to cool down and get even lighter in color. And it is, well, in fact, let me show you what it will look like. Hold on a minute. This is a jar that I made for Christmas gift giving. And I will show you. But this is what it will look like when it's all done. It is a little bit harder. It's still slightly soft. And it's so luxurious. It is absolutely fantastic. And the skin benefits are amazing. Vitamins A and E, and it really helps out the skin barrier. I use it on my face. I use it all over my arms. Okay, I use it all over my body. I don't think there's a spot that I don't put this on. It is wonderful stuff. I absolutely love it. It makes my skin very soft, and I think it really helps, protect my skin from things that maybe I don't want on my skin. It's absolutely wonderful stuff. So that is how I make my tallow balm. And as you can see, these are still very liquid. They have not solidified yet. It will take a while. They did seal though. I did hear my jars go ping, which is a beautiful sound. I love hearing that. You can see the bubbles on there. That's kind of cool. They won't last though. They'll all disappear and it'll just be like a nice little cream. So that is what I do. Thank you for coming along with me today on my little
kitchen excursion. I still have the rest of my fat rendering in the oven. I'm not sure how much longer that'll go, but I may fill my other pint jar here, which would be awesome. If not, that's all right. I might halfway fill it. I did take a peek at it and it is still going well. So if you stuck around this whole time, give yourself a round of applause. And thank you so much for coming and hanging out with me today. I really appreciate it. I hope everyone has a fantastic Monday, and I will catch you all later. Mwah. Toodles.